My son Michael handed me papers to sign over my $1.8 billion company in front of 50 people. Cameras were rolling. My daughter-in-law Jessica was telling everyone I had age-related confusion and needed them to take over for Dad's own good. My hand was shaking as I held the pen over the signature line. 22 years building Pinnacle Technologies from my garage in Detroit, and it was about to disappear in one signature. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. 4 words that saved my life. Don't sign anything. I'm Aiden Harris, and this is how I discovered my own son tried to steal everything, while the one person who really cared about our family was someone I'd known for 18 years but never truly seen. But before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family betrayal and the justice that follows. Let me take you back to where this all began. I'm Aiden Harris, 68 years old, and I built Pinnacle Technologies from absolutely nothing. 22 years ago, I was just a mechanic in Detroit with calloused hands and a crazy idea about artificial intelligence security software. My wife Margaret believed in me when nobody else did. We started in our garage with a second-hand computer and dreams bigger than our bank account. Margaret passed away 5 years ago. Cancer took her too fast, too young. On her deathbed, she made me promise something that would haunt me forever. "Make sure Michael has everything we built," she whispered. "He's our only child. He deserves the empire you're creating." I swore to her I'd give him the world. What I didn't know was that promise would become my prison. Michael is 34 now, Harvard MBA, everything a father could want on paper. Smart, ambitious, handsome. He married Jessica Williams 3 years ago, former Goldman Sachs analyst, sharp as a knife and twice as cutting. They seem perfect together. The golden couple taking over the family business. I trusted them completely. I gave them everything. But I didn't understand the difference between earning something and feeling entitled to it. Pinnacle Technologies became my life's work. We developed AI security software that protected major corporations from cyber attacks. By 2023, we had 2,800 employees across 4 states. The company was valued at $1.8 billion, and I owned 51% through a complex trust structure my lawyer, Robert Sterling, had set up years earlier. Michael joined the company right after business school. I made him executive vice president immediately, gave him a corner office, $500,000 salary. I wanted him to feel important, valued, ready to eventually take over everything I'd built. Jessica fit right in too. Former Wall Street background meant she understood numbers, strategy, big picture thinking. She'd offer suggestions about modernizing our approach and updating outdated systems. I thought she was helping us grow. My executive assistant, Emily Thompson, had been with me for 18 years. Started as a temp when Michael was still in high school, worked her way up to become the backbone of our entire operation. Emily knew everything, every contract, every deal, every detail of how Pinnacle ran. She was quiet, dependable, the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthday and stayed late to make sure important projects got finished. I never realized Emily would become more family to me than my own blood. The signs were there early, but I was blind to them. About a year ago, Michael started making suggestions about my retirement timeline. "Dad, you've worked so hard for so long. Don't you want to enjoy your golden years?" Jessica would chime in with comments about how successful executives know when to step back and let the next generation lead. At first it felt caring, like they were worried about my health, my happiness. I was pushing 70 after all. Maybe it was time to think about slowing down. Michael began asking detailed questions about our legal structure. Who controlled what percentages? How the trust worked? What would happen if something happened to me suddenly? He framed it as responsible planning, making sure he understood the business he'd eventually inherit. I was proud of his initiative. Finally, my son was taking real interest in the company's future. Robert Sterling, my attorney for over 20 years, tried to warn me. During one of our quarterly meetings, he mentioned that premature ownership transfers can be problematic, and that we should be careful about moving too fast. I brushed off his concerns. This was my family, my son, What could go wrong? Emily started expressing quiet concerns too. Little comments about how Michael was changing the culture and making decisions without consulting the established protocols. I told her he was just finding his leadership style. I should have listened to them both. Once I decided Michael was ready for more responsibility, I opened the floodgates. I wanted to show him how much I trusted him, how proud I was of the man he had become. Looking back, every gift I gave him became another chain around my own neck. First, I bought him and Jessica a house in Beverly Hills. $2.8 million, 6 bedrooms, pool, 3-car garage. Every young executive needs a proper address, I told myself. Michael seemed grateful, but Jessica immediately started talking about renovations and upgrades. Then came the stock options. I transferred $150 million worth of company equity to Michael as early inheritance. But my lawyer Robert Sterling raised his eyebrows at the amount, but I wanted Michael to feel like a real partner in our success. The weekly family dinners became my favorite tradition. Every Sunday we'd meet at their new house. I'd pick up the tab for catered meals, expensive wine, whatever they wanted. It felt like the family Margaret and I had always dreamed of. Michael's salary went from $500,000 to $800,000 within 6 months. Then I added performance bonuses, travel allowances, expense accounts. Every time he asked for something, I said yes. I was trying to buy his love, his loyalty, his respect. But love can't be purchased, and I was about to learn that the hard way. What I didn't know was that every dollar I gave him made him hungrier for more. The legal structure protecting everything I'd built was more complex than Michael realized. Back in 1998, when Pinnacle was still small, Robert Sterling had convinced me to set up a Delaware trust that would protect the company's assets, no matter what happened in California state law. Think of it as insurance, Robert explained. If anyone ever tries to take control of your company through fraud, manipulation, or illegal trickery, this trust gives you absolute veto power over any ownership changes. The trust had 2 co-trustees, myself and one other person who could act on my behalf if I was ever incapacitated or unavailable. I needed someone I trusted completely, someone who understood the business inside and out. I chose Emily Thompson. Most people would have picked a family member, a close friend, maybe another business partner. But Emily had been there through every major decision, every crisis, every triumph. She understood the company's values, its mission, its heart. More importantly, she had no personal agenda. She couldn't inherit anything from the trust. She was just there to protect it. Michael never knew Emily was co-trustee. I saw no reason to mention it. It seemed like boring legal paperwork, the kind of detail that would only matter in some hypothetical emergency. That emergency was coming faster than I knew. During our planning sessions, Robert kept emphasizing that the Delaware Trust took precedence over any California state laws about business succession. No one can force you to sign over control without both trustees agreeing, he assured me. I filed that information away and forgot about it. Michael's appetite for luxury grew with every gift I gave him. The Beverly Hills house wasn't enough. He wanted a vacation condo in Aspen. The company credit card limit wasn't high enough. He needed access to larger expense accounts for client entertainment. His office wasn't impressive enough. He wanted to renovate the entire executive floor. Every request came with business justification. We need to project success to attract bigger clients. Image matters in this industry. We're competing with companies that spare no expense on their facilities. Jessica was always there to support his arguments. Her Goldman Sachs background gave weight to her opinions about industry standards and competitive positioning. She'd throw around phrases like market perception and brand equity that made their requests sound strategic rather than greedy. I said yes to everything. $5 million in company renovations, $2 million for the Aspen property, unlimited first-class travel, private jet access for important meetings. Emily started keeping track of these expenses in a separate file. She'd present me with quarterly summaries that showed Michael's spending had increased 300% year over year. When I asked her about it, she'd just say, "I want to make sure you have complete information, Mr. Harris." I should have paid more attention to her concerns. Michael began talking about my retirement timeline more frequently. Dad, you've earned the right to step back. Let me handle the day-to-day operations while you enjoy the fruits of your labor. It sounded like caring. It felt like manipulation. Last December, I decided to give Michael the ultimate vote of confidence. I announced a $5 million bonus for his outstanding leadership and outlined my plan for a gradual transition over the next 2 years. I want you to feel completely prepared to take over, I told him during a private dinner. We'll do this slowly, carefully, making sure every detail is handled properly. Michael and Jessica exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. Suddenly, they were more affectionate than they'd been in months. Jessica started calling me Dad instead of Mr. Harris. Michael began inviting me to more business meetings, asking for my input on major decisions. I felt like I was finally getting the son I'd always wanted. But something strange was happening with Emily. Michael had reassigned her to work on special projects instead of being my direct assistant. Dad, you need someone younger, more tech-savvy, helping you with daily operations, he explained. Emily's great, but she's stuck in old-school methods. A new assistant, Patricia, was hired to replace Emily. Patricia was efficient, polite, and reported everything directly to Michael. Emily's new office was in a different building. I barely saw her anymore. When I asked Michael about it, he said, "We're optimizing workflow and reducing redundancy. It's just smart business." I should have recognized it for what it was, isolating me from the one person who might protect me. But I trusted my son completely, and that trust was about to destroy everything. The first real crack in my fantasy appeared during a board meeting in February. I was presenting our quarterly results when Michael interrupted me mid-sentence. "Dad, that's old thinking," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We need to focus on forward-looking metrics, not backward-looking data." The room went silent. Board members shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. In 22 years of running Pinnacle Technologies, no one had ever cut me off during a presentation, especially not my own son. Michael continued as if nothing had happened. "What my father is trying to say is that we're transitioning to more sophisticated analytical frameworks." He took over the rest of my presentation. After the meeting, several board members approached me privately. "Aiden, is everything okay? That seemed unusual." I brushed off their concerns, made excuses about Michael's enthusiasm and new ideas. But inside, I felt something cold settling in my chest. This pattern repeated itself over the next few weeks. Michael would override my decisions in public settings, always with that same phrase, "Dad, that's old thinking." Staff members started coming to him instead of me with questions. Phone calls got routed through his office first. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like an outsider in my own company. Emily tried to warn me during one of our rare conversations. "Mr. Harris, I'm concerned about some of the changes happening around here." But before she could elaborate, Patricia appeared with an urgent matter that required my immediate attention. I was being managed, controlled, slowly pushed aside. Michael's disrespect escalated from professional to personal. In March, I arrived at my office to find my furniture had been moved overnight. My desk, my chairs, my personal photos of Margaret, everything relocated to a smaller office down the hall. "We're optimizing the space," Michael explained when I confronted him. "The executive suite works better as a conference room. You'll be more comfortable in the smaller office anyway." My personal photos, 25 years of memories with Margaret, pictures from our early days building the company, were stuffed into cardboard boxes. Michael had replaced them with modern art pieces and photos of himself receiving various business awards. Jessica was there, supervising the changes. "We're modernizing Dad's image," she told Patricia with a smile. "Sometimes older executives need help staying current with professional standards." I stood in the hallway holding a box of my own memories, watching strangers rearrange my life's work. That afternoon, I discovered Michael had accessed my personal computer files. 20 years of private correspondence, financial records, strategic planning documents, all copied to his own system. When I asked him about it, he didn't deny it. "Dad, I need complete information to make good decisions for the company. Transparency is important for effective leadership." Emily appeared at my elbow. "Mr. Harris, I've been backing up important documents to secure storage," she whispered. "I wanted to make sure nothing gets lost during all these transitions." She was protecting me, even when I couldn't protect myself, but I still didn't understand the scope of what was happening. Family dinners became strategy sessions where I wasn't invited to participate. Michael and Jessica would arrive with folders full of documents, charts, projections. They'd whisper to each other throughout the meal, then stop talking whenever I tried to join the conversation. "We're just discussing some business ideas," Michael would say. "Nothing you need to worry about right now." Jessica started making comments about my memory. "Dad, didn't we already discuss this last week?" When I knew we hadn't. "Are you feeling confused about that?" When I expressed different opinions than theirs. They suggested I see a geriatrician just for a general checkup, but made the appointment without asking me first. "We're worried about you," Jessica said with fake concern. "Sometimes older people don't realize when they're experiencing cognitive changes. We just want to make sure you're healthy." The appointment was scheduled for the following week. I felt trapped in my own life, watching two people systematically take control of everything I'd built, while pretending they were helping me. But the worst was yet to come. During one dinner, I overheard Jessica on the phone in the kitchen. "Yes, Dr. Mitchell, we're concerned about confusion and decision-making difficulties. Can you make sure the evaluation is thorough?" She was priming the doctor to find problems with my mental capacity. That night, driving home alone, I realized my son and daughter-in-law weren't trying to help me transition into retirement. They were trying to prove I was incompetent so they could take everything. In April, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. My bank statement showed wire transfers I didn't remember authorizing. Large amounts. Tens of millions of dollars moving from company accounts to investments I'd never heard of. When I called the bank, they told me Michael was authorized to make transfers up to $680 million using company assets as collateral. $680 million. "But I never authorized that," I told them. "Sir, we have your signature on the authorization forms dated 3 months ago." I demanded copies of the paperwork. My signature was there, but I had no memory of signing anything related to investment authorization of that size. That evening, I confronted Michael at his house. "What's this about $680 million in investment authority?" Michael's face went pale, then quickly recovered. "Dad, you probably forgot we discussed this. You said you wanted me to have flexibility to pursue growth opportunities." Jessica jumped in immediately. "We talked about cryptocurrency investments, remember? You said it was smart to diversify our portfolio." Cryptocurrency. I had never authorized cryptocurrency investments. I didn't even understand cryptocurrency. "Dad, you're confusing yourself again," Jessica continued. "This is exactly why we've been worried about your decision-making." But I knew I had never signed those forms. Someone had forged my signature or tricked me into signing something I didn't understand. That night, I called Emily at home. "I need to see you tomorrow morning," I said. "Somewhere private. I think I'm in trouble." The $680 million number haunted me. Why did it feel so familiar? The final betrayal came on a Thursday morning in May. I arrived at work to find Emily's office empty. Her desk cleared out, her computer gone, 18 years of personal items packed into boxes. Patricia handed me a brief email. "Emily Thompson's employment has been terminated effective immediately due to insubordination and failure to adapt to new company standards." 18 years of loyal service ended with an email. I stormed into Michael's office. "What the hell happened to Emily?" "Dad, I had to let her go. She was undermining new management procedures and spreading negativity among the staff. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions for the good of the company." Jessica was there, of course. Emily was always too attached to the old ways of doing things. We need people who can evolve with our growth strategy. "She's been with us for 18 years, I shouted. "Exactly," Jessica replied coldly. "Sometimes long-term employees become obstacles to progress. We can't let sentiment interfere with business efficiency." I tried calling Emily immediately, but her company phone had been disconnected. Her personal number went straight to voicemail. That afternoon, I learned they'd escorted her out of the building with security guards, treated like a criminal. 18 years of dedication and they walked her out like she was stealing office supplies. For the first time, I understood that Michael and Jessica weren't just greedy. They were cruel. And if they could dispose of Emily so easily, what did they have planned for me? That night I couldn't sleep. Something terrible was coming. The invitation arrived on elegant paper. You're cordially invited to a special celebration honoring Aiden Harris and the future of Pinnacle Technologies. Michael presented it to me with a big smile. Dad, we're throwing a party to celebrate your incredible legacy and announce the next chapter of our company's growth. The guest list was impressive. Board members, major investors, business reporters from tech publications, 50 of the most important people in our industry, all coming to our Beverly Hills home. It's going to be live streamed too, Jessica added. We want the whole world to see how proud we are of everything you've accomplished. I felt honored. After months of tension and confusion, my family was finally recognizing my contributions to the company. Maybe I'd been paranoid about their intentions. Maybe they really did want to celebrate my legacy before I retired. The party was scheduled for the following Saturday evening. Should I prepare remarks? I asked. Don't worry about that, Michael said quickly. We've got everything handled. Just show up and enjoy being the man of honor. Jessica smiled that sharp smile of hers. We want this to be a surprise celebration. You just relax and let us take care of the details. Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling down. This was my family. My son wanted to honor me publicly. I should be grateful, not suspicious. The week passed slowly. I found myself looking forward to Saturday night. I had no idea I was walking into my own execution. Saturday evening arrived with perfect California weather. The Beverly Hills mansion looked like something from a movie. Professional lighting, catered food stations, an open bar staffed by uniformed servers. Michael and Jessica had spared no expense. 50 guests mingled in the backyard, all of them people whose opinions mattered in our industry. Board members who controlled millions in investment funds, tech journalists who could make or break a company's reputation with a single article. Professional cameras were set up around the patio. The live stream had already started, with hundreds of viewers watching online. Dad, you look great, Michael said, adjusting my tie. Are you ready for your big moment? I felt proud, nervous, excited. My son had organized this incredible celebration to honor my life's work. Margaret would have been so happy to see our family united like this. Jessica clinked a champagne glass to get everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate an incredible man and an important transition for Pinnacle Technologies. The crowd applauded. Cameras focused on my face. I waved, feeling genuinely moved by the outpouring of respect. My father-in-law, Aiden Harris, has built something extraordinary, Jessica continued. But tonight isn't just about celebrating the past. It's about announcing the future. A server appeared at my elbow with a folder of documents. Mr. Harris, these need your signature. I looked down at legal papers with my name highlighted in yellow. Ownership transfer agreements. The title page read, Complete Asset Transfer, Pinnacle Technologies. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a celebration. This was an ambush. Jessica's voice carried across the patio as she addressed the crowd. As many of you know, Aiden has been experiencing some confusion lately. Memory issues, difficulty with complex decisions, the kind of challenges that come with aging. 50 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me. The cameras kept rolling. Online viewers were watching me hold a pen over papers I hadn't read, while my daughter-in-law told the world I was mentally incompetent. For his own protection and the security of everyone whose investments depend on Pinnacle Technologies, we're implementing a carefully planned transition tonight. My hands started shaking. The documents felt heavy in my grip. I tried to read them quickly, but the legal language blurred together. Complete transfer of ownership, immediate resignation from all positions, release of all claims to company assets. Dad, Michael said loudly enough for everyone to hear, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. We've discussed this transition many times. You agreed it was the right thing to do. I hadn't agreed to anything. I'd never seen these papers before in my life. The crowd was murmuring now. board members looking concerned, reporters taking notes, the live stream chat probably exploding with comments about the old CEO's mental state. "Just sign the papers, Dad," Jessica said with fake sweetness. "Everyone here knows this is best for the company and best for you." I felt trapped, humiliated, completely powerless. 50 witnesses watching me sign away everything I'd built, while cameras broadcast my defeat to the internet. My hand trembled over the signature line. The pen felt impossibly heavy in my shaking fingers. Voices around me blurred into background noise as I stared at the signature line that would end everything I'd spent my life building. Michael leaned close to my ear. "Dad, everyone's watching. Don't embarrass yourself." Jessica's voice continued addressing the crowd. "We want to assure all our investors and partners that this transition has been planned carefully. Aiden is ready to enjoy a well-deserved retirement, while younger leadership guides Pinnacle into its next phase of growth." The cameras were so close, I could feel their heat on my face. 50 people watching me surrender. Hundreds more online, witnessing my public defeat. I raised the pen toward the paper. That's when my phone buzzed. The vibration was so unexpected I almost dropped the documents. In the middle of this orchestrated humiliation, someone was texting me. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. 4 words that changed everything. "Don't sign anything. Emily." My heart stopped. Emily was trying to warn me about something. "Dad?" Michael's voice had an edge now. "Is everything okay?" I looked up at 50 expectant faces, at cameras recording my every move, at my son and daughter-in-law who had planned this ambush with military precision. "I need to use the bathroom," I said. "Dad, can't it wait? Everyone's here to witness this important moment." "No," I said, my voice stronger than it had been in months. "It can't wait." I walked toward the house, still holding the unsigned papers. I locked the bathroom door and pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. There was a second text from Emily. "Check your email now." I opened my email app and found a message sent just minutes earlier. The subject line read, "The truth about tonight." The message was brief. "Mr. Harris, I've been watching the live stream. Don't sign anything until you read the attachment. They're not just taking the company, they're making you responsible for Michael's debts. USB drive is in your desk drawer, bottom left, taped under the metal filing system. You trusted me for 18 years. Trust me now. Emily." The attachment was a financial summary. My hands shook as I read the numbers. Michael had borrowed $680 million using company assets as collateral. Cryptocurrency investments, 91% losses over 6 months. The ownership transfer documents I was holding weren't just giving him control of Pinnacle Technologies. They were making me personally liable for his gambling debts. If I signed those papers, I wouldn't be retiring to enjoy my golden years. I'd be bankrupt, responsible for nearly $700 million in losses, while Michael walked away with whatever remained of my life's work. Someone knocked on the bathroom door. "Dad, you've been in there a while. People are starting to worry." Jessica's voice. "Aiden, are you feeling all right? Should we call a doctor?" They were setting the narrative, the confused old man having a breakdown during his own retirement party. I flushed the toilet and turned on the faucet to buy time. I had to get to that USB drive. I opened the bathroom door to find Michael and Jessica waiting in the hallway. "Dad, you're making our guests uncomfortable," Michael said. "Let's just finish the paperwork and get back to the party." "What?" "I need to get something from my briefcase," I said. "I'll be right back." "What could you possibly need?" Jessica asked. "Reading glasses. I can't see the fine print clearly." Michael's eyes narrowed. "Dad, you don't wear reading glasses." "I do for legal documents," I lied. "They're in my desk at home. I'll drive over quickly and—" "Absolutely not," Jessica interrupted. "You're not driving anywhere in your current state. If you need glasses, we'll send someone to get them." They weren't going to let me leave. I was trapped in my son's house, surrounded by witnesses, while he forced me to sign away everything. But I had to try something. "Fine," I said. "Let me just call my lawyer to confirm the terms." Michael's face went white. "Dad, that's not necessary. Robert Sterling already reviewed everything." "Then he won't mind if I double-check with him." I pulled out my phone and started dialing Robert's number. Jessica grabbed my wrist. Aiden, you're embarrassing yourself in front of very important people. Just sign the papers and we can discuss details later. Her grip was firm, desperate. That's when I understood the full scope of their plan. They needed me to sign tonight, in front of witnesses, on camera. Once those documents were executed publicly, there would be no way to claim fraud or manipulation later. I wasn't signing over a company. I was signing my own financial death warrant. I broke free from Jessica's grip and walked toward the front door. I'm going home. This party is over for me. Dad, you can't just leave. Michael's voice cracked with panic. Everyone came here to witness this transition. You're humiliating the entire family. 50 guests watched from the patio as I made my way to my car. Board members looked confused. Reporters were definitely taking notes now. The live stream was capturing every moment of what looked like an old man having a public meltdown. Jessica followed me to the driveway. Aiden, if you drive away now, everyone will think you're having some kind of mental episode. Is that really how you want to be remembered? I turned to face her. For the first time in 3 years, I really saw my daughter-in-law clearly. The calculated concern, the strategic positioning near the cameras, the way she'd orchestrated this entire evening to maximum her advantage. I'll remember this night perfectly, I said. Every detail. I drove straight to Margaret's grave. Inglewood Park Cemetery was quiet at night. I sat on the bench near her headstone and tried to process what had just happened. My son had tried to trick me into bankruptcy while broadcasting it to the world. My daughter-in-law had orchestrated my public humiliation. Everyone I thought I could trust had betrayed me. Except Emily. Margaret, I said to the headstone, I think our son is trying to destroy everything we built. But the woman who's trying to save me isn't family. She's the secretary we trusted with our business for 18 years. The irony was devastating. Blood meant nothing. Loyalty meant everything. And I was about to find out just how loyal Emily Thompson really was. I drove home and went straight to my office. The USB drive was exactly where Emily said it would be, taped under the filing system in my bottom desk drawer. My hands trembled as I plugged it into my computer. 18 years of documents. Every email Emily had ever saved, every financial record she'd backed up, every board meeting transcript, every contract negotiation, every strategic decision that built Pinnacle Technologies. But more than that, she'd been documenting Michael's behavior for months. Expense reports showing his escalating spending, email chains where he discussed Dad's declining capacity with business partners, records of the forged authorization signatures that gave him access to company funds, screenshots of cryptocurrency trading accounts showing massive losses. Emily had been protecting me even when I didn't know I needed protection. At 2 a.m., I called Robert Sterling at home. Aiden, what's wrong? Robert, I need to activate every legal protection we set up. The Delaware Trust, the fiduciary controls, everything. Michael tried to force me to sign ownership transfer documents tonight, and I think he's already stolen nearly $700 million. Silence on the other end of the line. Robert? I'm here. How bad is this? I spent the next hour walking him through Emily's evidence. The unauthorized crypto investments, the forged signatures, the public humiliation designed to make me look incompetent, so no one would believe my claims of fraud later. Aiden, this is worse than theft. This is elder abuse, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. Michael could face federal charges. What can we do? Meet me at my office tomorrow morning. Bring Emily if you can find her. We're going to stop this before it goes any further. I finally understood what Margaret's promise really meant. I had to protect everything we'd built from our own son. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table and read through every document on Emily's USB drive. 18 years of meticulous record-keeping that told the complete story of how I'd built Pinnacle Technologies and how my son was systematically destroying it. Emily had saved emails from 2019 where Michael first started asking about succession planning timelines. Messages from 2021 where he discussed my declining energy levels with potential investors. Screenshots from this year showing him researching elder incompetency, legal standards, and corporate succession law in California. This wasn't impulsive greed. This was a 3-year plan to steal everything I owned. At 6 a.m., I drove to the coffee shop where Emily and I used to meet for early morning strategy sessions. I sat in our usual corner booth and waited. At exactly 7:30, she walked through the door. Emily Thompson looked older than when I'd last seen her. Tired, stressed, but determined. She slid into the booth across from me and pulled out a second USB drive. "I've been hoping you'd call," she said quietly. "Emily, why didn't you tell me what was happening?" "I tried, Mr. Harris, but Michael made sure I couldn't get close to you. Every time I attempted to warn you, Patricia would appear with some urgent matter. Every email I sent to your personal account was probably monitored. Michael had isolated you completely." She pushed the second USB drive across the table. "This one has everything from the past 6 months, including recorded phone conversations where Michael and Jessica discussed their timeline for taking control of the company. California is a 2-party consent state, but they called me at home after firing me. They didn't know I was recording. 22 years I'd spent building a company. 18 years Emily had spent protecting it. Tomorrow, I stopped being the victim." Emily handed me coffee and the second USB drive. Her hands were steady, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "I've been watching the live stream recordings from last night," she said. "They're already spinning the narrative. Michael posted on social media about difficult family transitions and supporting aging parents through challenging times." The coffee tasted bitter, but I needed the caffeine. "How bad is the financial damage?" $687 million in losses. Michael used cryptocurrency trading algorithms that basically amounted to gambling. He lost everything in 4 months, then tried to cover it by borrowing against company assets without board approval. Emily opened her laptop and showed me the evidence. Trading records, wire transfer confirmations, forged authorization documents with my signature. The worst part is the ownership transfer papers you almost signed last night. They wouldn't just give him control of Pinnacle Technologies. They would make you personally responsible for all his debts. You'd lose everything, your house, your savings, your retirement accounts. I stared at the numbers on the screen. If I'd signed those papers, I would have gone from billionaire to bankrupt in one signature. "Emily, why are you doing this? You don't owe me anything. They fired you. You could just walk away." She looked at me with the same steady expression she'd worn through 18 years of business crises. "Mr. Harris, you paid for my daughter's college education when she got into Stanford, but couldn't afford tuition. You covered my mother's medical bills when her insurance wouldn't pay for cancer treatment. You've been more of a father to me than my own father ever was." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you need them most." Robert Sterling's law office occupied the top floor of a downtown high-rise. By 9 a.m., we'd spread Emily's evidence across his conference table, like generals planning a military campaign. "This is overwhelming," Robert said, reviewing the financial documents. "Michael didn't just commit fraud. He committed systematic elder abuse with premeditation. The recorded conversations alone could put him in federal prison." Emily had brought transcripts of phone calls where Michael and Jessica discussed my mental decline and their timeline for taking control before Dad realizes what's happening. They'd planned everything months in advance. "What's our strongest legal position?" I asked. Robert pulled out a thick folder. "The Delaware Trust we established in 1998. It gives you absolute veto power over any ownership changes, and it requires Emily's co-signature on any major asset transfers. Even if you had signed those papers last night, they wouldn't be legally binding without Emily's approval." Emily straightened in her chair. "I would never have approved transferring the company to Michael after discovering his financial mismanagement." "More importantly," Robert continued, "the trust takes precedence over California state law. Michael can't claim mental incompetency in California courts because the Delaware Trust specifically protects against that type of challenge." We spent 2 hours building our legal strategy. First, activate the Delaware Trust to freeze all company assets. Second, file a complaint with the SEC for securities fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Third, pursue criminal charges for elder abuse and financial fraud. How long will this take? I asked. Emergency injunctions can be filed today. Michael will be removed from all company positions by Monday morning. Emily smiled for the first time since I'd seen her. Mr. Harris, I think we're about to give your son a very expensive education about the consequences of betrayal. Monday morning, I walked into Pinnacle Technologies for what I knew would be the last time as CEO. Michael was already in his office, my former office, when Robert Sterling and I arrived with a security escort and a folder full of legal documents. "Dad, what's this about?" Michael asked, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Emergency board meeting," I said calmly, "required under the Delaware trust provisions that establish this company." Michael's face went white. "What Delaware trust?" Robert Sterling stepped forward. "The trust that your father established in 1998 to protect Pinnacle Technologies from exactly this type of situation. The trust that gives him absolute control over ownership transfers and requires co-trustee approval for any major asset changes." "Co-trustee?" Michael looked confused. "Emily Thompson," I said, "who, by the way, has been documenting your financial fraud for the past 6 months. The blood drained from Michael's face as Emily entered the room, carrying 3 boxes of evidence. "Board members are assembling in Conference Room A," Emily announced. "All major investors have been notified of the emergency meeting regarding securities fraud and breach of fiduciary duty." Michael tried to bluster. "This is ridiculous. Dad, you're obviously confused about—" "The Securities and Exchange Commission received our formal complaint this morning," Robert interrupted, "along with recorded conversations where you discuss manipulating your father's mental capacity assessment and forging authorization signatures for personal cryptocurrency trading." For the first time in months, Michael had nothing to say. "Oh, and Michael," I added, "your company credit cards have been frozen, your access to business accounts has been terminated, and building security has been instructed to escort you from the premises after the board meeting." The look of betrayal on my son's face was devastating, but not as devastating as what he'd tried to do to me. The board meeting lasted 45 minutes. 12 members unanimously voted to remove Michael from all positions and freeze his access to company resources. The evidence Emily presented was overwhelming. Financial records, recorded conversations, forged documents. Within hours, news of the SEC investigation hit business media. Pinnacle Technologies founder files fraud, complaint against son dominated tech industry headlines. Jessica called my cell phone 17 times that afternoon. I didn't answer. Michael showed up at my house that evening looking haggard and desperate. "Dad, we can work this out privately. You don't need to involve federal investigators." I stood in my doorway, looking at the son I'd raised and loved and tried to give everything to. "Michael, you tried to steal $700 million. You forged my signature. You planned to make me responsible for your gambling debts, while telling the world I was mentally incompetent. I was protecting the company. You were making bad decisions. I was making decisions you disagreed with. There's a difference." Michael's voice cracked. "Dad, I'm your son. Family doesn't destroy family." That phrase hung in the air between us. "You're right," I said quietly. "Family doesn't destroy family, which is why Emily Thompson has shown me more loyalty in the past week than you've shown me in the past year." I closed the door and locked it. From my window, I watched Michael sit in his car for 20 minutes before driving away. Part of me wanted to run outside, forgive him, pretend none of this had happened. But forgiveness without accountability isn't love. It's enabling. And I was done enabling my son's destructive choices. Federal investigators moved quickly. Within a week, Michael's crypto trading accounts were frozen, his personal assets were seized, and the FBI had executed search warrants on his Beverly Hills home. The house I'd bought him, the $2.8 million symbol of my generous love, was actually owned by the trust that funded it. The trust I controlled. Eviction notices were served on Wednesday morning. Michael called me from his lawyer's office. "Dad, you can't throw your own son onto the street." "I'm not throwing you anywhere, Michael. I'm reclaiming stolen property." "Jessica is pregnant. You're going to make your future grandchild homeless?" This was news to me, but I couldn't let emotional manipulation change the legal reality. Michael, you embezzled nearly $700 million from the company. The house was purchased with funds you stole. I'm not making you homeless. Your choices made you homeless. Jessica filed for divorce the next day. Michael's expensive lawyer fees were bleeding through what remained of his personal assets. The cryptocurrency losses had wiped out everything else. Most devastatingly, news of the investigation reached Harvard Business School. They launched an ethics review of Michael's MBA degree, considering whether his recent conduct violated the honor code that governed graduation. My son had lost his job, his home, his wife, his fortune, and potentially his educational credentials, all because he couldn't wait 2 years for me to retire naturally. Emily found me in my office that Friday afternoon, staring at a photo of Michael from his Harvard graduation. He looked so proud, so promising, so full of potential. "Mr. Harris," she said gently, "sometimes the hardest part of love is letting people experience the consequences of their choices." She was right, but it still felt like losing my son twice. Once to greed, and once to justice. Packing my personal office took less time than I expected. 22 years of building an empire, and my actual possessions fit into 3 cardboard boxes. Photos of Margaret, a few awards that meant something to me, the original business plan I'd written in our garage, books, coffee mugs, the small personal items that make an office feel like home. Emily supervised the process, making sure everything was properly transferred. The board had appointed her interim CEO while they searched for permanent leadership. It felt right. She understood the company's values better than anyone. "The staff wants to throw you a retirement party," she mentioned while I packed my desk. "No more parties," I said. "I've had enough public ceremonies for one lifetime." Emily smiled. "I thought you might say that, but they respect what you built here, Mr. Harris. 2,800 employees still have jobs because you refused to let Michael destroy the company." I carried my boxes to the car and took one final walk through the building I'd designed. The research lab where we developed our first AI security software, the break room where I'd shared coffee with employees every morning, the conference room where we'd planned our expansion into global markets. Pinnacle Technologies would survive without me. Emily would make sure of that. As I drove away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to prove my worth to anyone. I wasn't managing my son's expectations or protecting my daughter-in-law's feelings. I was just Aiden Harris, finally free to live for myself. I moved to a smaller house 20 minutes from Margaret's grave. 2 bedrooms, modest kitchen, garden space where I could grow vegetables. After decades of expensive suits and corporate dinners, I discovered the satisfaction of simple pleasures. Cooking my own meals, reading books without interruption, visiting Margaret's headstone every Sunday to tell her about my week. Emily stopped by regularly to update me on company progress. Pinnacle Technologies was thriving under her leadership. Stock prices had actually increased after news broke about Michael's removal and the successful resolution of the fraud investigation. "Investors like stability," Emily explained during one of our garden conversations. "They're more confident in the company now that the leadership uncertainty has been resolved." We established a charitable foundation using the recovered assets from Michael's fraud. The Aiden and Margaret Harris Foundation provided college scholarships for children of working-class families and emergency medical assistance for families facing catastrophic healthcare costs. The same generosity I'd shown as a father, helping Emily's daughter with Stanford tuition, covering her mother's cancer treatments, now became systematic assistance for hundreds of families. Real legacy isn't about how much money you accumulate. It's about how many lives you improve along the way. But late at night, I still wondered about Michael. Was he learning anything from the consequences of his choices? Did he understand why I'd had to stop him? Or did he just hate me for refusing to be his victim? I hoped someday he'd find his way back to the values Margaret and I had tried to teach him. But I wouldn't hold my breath waiting. 3 months after Michael's arrest, I received a letter from federal prison, his handwriting grown shaky with stress and desperation. "Dad, I know I made mistakes, but I never meant to hurt you. I was trying to grow the company and secure our family's future. Jessica pressured me to move faster than I was comfortable with. I got in over my head with investments I didn't understand. I'm sorry for disappointing you." I read the letter twice, then set it aside. Michael was apologizing for mistakes and disappointments. He wasn't acknowledging fraud, elder abuse, or the systematic plan to steal everything I'd built. He was minimizing his choices and blaming Jessica for pressuring him. That afternoon, I wrote a brief response. "Michael, when you're ready to take full responsibility for your actions without blaming others or calling felonies mistakes, I'll be willing to talk. Until then, I hope prison gives you time to think about the difference between being sorry you got caught and being sorry you hurt people. Love, Dad." I mailed the letter that day. Emily found me in the garden that evening, watering tomato plants. "How are you holding up, Mr. Harris?" "I miss my son," I said honestly, "but I don't miss being afraid of what he might do next." She nodded. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's destructive behavior. A year later, she'd bring me something that would change everything again. Michael's federal trial made national news. Securities fraud, elder abuse, breach of fiduciary duty. The charges carried potential sentences of 15 to 20 years. Business schools across the country used his case as a cautionary tale about corporate ethics and family business succession. What had started as my private family tragedy became a public education about the dangers of entitlement and financial fraud. Jessica divorced Michael while he was awaiting sentencing, taking half of what little remained of his assets. The pregnancy she'd mentioned turned out to be fictional, another manipulation tactic that backfired when medical records disproved her claims. She returned to finance work in New York, as far from the scandal as geography would allow. Michael was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. The judge specifically mentioned the breach of trust between father and son, and the predatory nature of elder financial abuse in her sentencing remarks. 12 years. Michael would be 46 when he was released, his prime career years lost to the consequences of his choices. I felt no satisfaction in his punishment. Prison wouldn't teach him empathy or integrity. Those lessons had to come from within. But it would protect other potential victims from his manipulations. The hardest part was knowing that somewhere my son was learning to hate me instead of learning to take responsibility for what he'd done. The congressional hearing surprised me. Senator Elizabeth Warren's office called to request my testimony about family financial fraud and elder abuse protection laws. "Mr. Harris, your case has exposed significant gaps in our legal protections for older Americans," her aide explained. "We'd like you to speak about how families can protect themselves from this type of exploitation." I testified before the Senate Banking Committee on a Tuesday morning in February. The hearing room was packed with families who'd experienced similar betrayals. Children stealing from elderly parents, relatives manipulating seniors into signing away assets, systematic financial abuse disguised as helping with money management. My testimony was simple. Trust your instincts, document everything, and never sign anything under pressure. Predators count on their victims feeling too embarrassed to seek help, I told the committee. They use family relationships to create guilt and shame that prevents people from reporting crimes. We need legal structures that protect seniors without infantilizing them. The Emily Thompson Elder Protection Act passed 6 months later. It required financial institutions to flag unusual large transfers involving seniors and created federal oversight for family business succession planning. Hundreds of families would be protected by legislation that grew from Emily's 18 years of careful documentation and my willingness to speak publicly about my son's betrayal. Sometimes tragedy becomes the foundation for preventing future tragedies. 2 years after his conviction, Michael wrote again from federal prison. This letter was different, longer, more thoughtful, less defensive. "Dad, I've been in therapy for 8 months, trying to understand how I became someone who could hurt the people I claim to love. I think I confused wanting success with deserving success. I felt entitled to everything you'd built without earning it myself. I was angry that you didn't retire on my timeline. Angry that Emily had influence I thought should be mine. Angry that success was harder than I expected. Instead of working harder, I decided to take shortcuts. I know saying sorry doesn't fix what I broke, but I need you to know that I understand now. What I did was criminal, not just a business mistake. I stole from you. I tried to destroy your reputation to cover my crimes. I treated Jessica and Emily terribly because they were convenient scapegoats for my failures. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that prison hasn't made me hate you. It's helped me understand how much I threw away when I chose greed over family. I read the letter 3 times. It sounded like genuine accountability, but words are easy. Actions matter more. I wrote back, Michael, I'm proud of you for taking responsibility. That's the first step toward becoming the man your mother wanted you to be. But I didn't visit. Some bridges take more than words to rebuild. Emily knocked on my door on a sunny Saturday morning, carrying a wrapped package that looked like a photo album. I have something for you, Mr. Harris. I've been working on it for months. Inside was a scrapbook, 18 years of photos I'd never seen, employees at their children's graduations, families celebrating holidays, wedding photos, baby announcements, retirement parties. You paid for college tuitions, Emily explained as I turned the pages. Medical bills, down payments on houses, emergency car repairs, hundreds of people whose lives you changed without expecting recognition. There were thank you letters I'd never read, photos of children holding diplomas their parents couldn't have afforded without my help, families standing in front of homes they'd bought with emergency loans I'd provided and forgotten about. Mr. Harris, this is your real legacy, not the company valuation or the business awards. You gave people opportunities to build better lives. I stared at faces of people whose names I barely remembered, but whose lives I'd apparently touched in ways I'd never realized. The last pages of Emily's scrapbook contained letters from Pinnacle Technologies, employees written after news of Michael's fraud became public. Mr. Harris always treated us like family, not just workers. He attended my daughter's funeral and paid for everything when I couldn't afford it. 20 years ago, he gave me a second chance after I made mistakes at my previous job. I've been loyal ever since. Reading their words, I finally understood what Margaret had really meant when she asked me to give Michael everything we'd built. She wasn't talking about money or company ownership. She was talking about values, generosity, loyalty, integrity, the commitment to lift up other people. Michael had received the financial inheritance, but Emily and thousands of employees had received the spiritual inheritance. The company would continue helping families for decades to come. The charitable foundation would educate children and support medical care. The legacy would outlive me, outlive Michael, outlive all of us. Real wealth isn't what you accumulate. It's what you give away that keeps growing. Emily closed the scrapbook and handed me an envelope. One more thing, this came to the office yesterday. Inside was a letter from a woman named Sarah Martinez. Her father had worked in Pinnacle's security department for 12 years before passing away suddenly. She was writing to tell me that he'd always called me the good boss who remembers people are more important than profits. He used to say, you prove that successful people don't have to become cruel people, she wrote. Thank you for showing my children what leadership looks like. I sat in my garden, holding Sarah's letter, understanding finally that the most important inheritance isn't money, it's memory. The people we help, the kindness we show, the chances we give others to succeed, that's what survives when we're gone. And sometimes a 4-word text message can save everything that matters. Family isn't blood, Emily, I said. Family is the people who show up when you need them most. She smiled. I learned that from watching you, Mr. Harris.